Have you ever been in a gale force wind? There was when I was in college, we were staying at a house in the summer, and there was this terrible windstorm. A tornado actually touched down about a quarter mile from where we were. And I've never been anything like that in my life. And one of our friends was trying to get back inside. This is not him, but this is what it looked like. We didn't have, the only video cameras we had back then were the kinds you carried on your shoulders. We didn't have one of those. But this is the guy, it was like that, trying to get him back in the house. I want you to imagine pain like a strong wind that's either pushing you away from God or is at your back pushing you into his arms. By the way, I had a humongous fan that I borrowed, and I was actually gonna use this as an illustration up here, but it caused a lot of destruction on stage, and so we decided against it. But just imagine it, will you? Is that pain pushing you away from God, or is that pain pushing you toward his arms? Because listen to me, prayer turns the angle of the wind. So that pain begins to drive that person toward Jesus, not away from him. For a lot of people, pain takes them away from Jesus. You know some of those people. In fact, some of you are those people. And your prayers for somebody else turns the angle of that wind so that the pain moves them to be more trusting and more humble and more dependent on Jesus rather than more bitter and more resentful and more independent from him. So yeah, pray that the suffering will stop. That's fine. But more importantly, pray for the sufferer to have the humility and the faith to learn the lesson. That is, to begin to despair of their own weakness and trust in a God who is able to inject resurrection life into dying things in the world. By the way, can we stop there for just a quick second? Look again at verse 9. Look at it. Paul did not see resurrection power as a one-time thing, did he? As in the resurrection was God's one big miracle, and now he's just kind of sitting back, just sort of watching to see how things play out. Oh yeah, he's wanting to throw down a little bit of favor here, a little bit of favor there, do some stuff, help you get over your cold faster. Yeah, maybe help you do well on a test. But his big stuff, his big miracles, yeah, that was back during Jesus' time. No, Paul said, God took that same resurrection power and he injected it into my situation. And that means the church should be a house of miracles. Miracles in our parenting, and miracles with prodigals, and miracles in our finances, and miracles in our relationships, and miracles in marriages, and miracles in our sicknesses, and in our patience, and our generosity, and our perseverance. And so we're praying that sufferers would have the ability to hope in a God who still raises from the dead, and who still sits on the throne, and who still dispenses that power for the glorification of his name and help of his people. Friend, you don't need relief from your problems, you need resurrection in your problems. And that's what God wants to give you. That's why he brought you to that valley of the shadow of death, so you could know that he's the God of new life. So pray for that sufferer, that they'll know he's a God of miracles. And then also pray that they will know he's a God who will never leave them or forsake them, never, ever, not ever, for any reason. And you know that because at the cross, he entered into your worst pain, the pain you actually deserved, the pain you had brought upon yourself, the punishment due for your sin. And he went into the cross and he bore it in your place. And see, if he didn't leave me in that pain, in the worst moment of pain that I deserved, he won't leave me now.